Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we'll be checking out the recently added Tornado F.3, a British Tier 7 aircraft that costs 20,000 coins. This plane finally gives a player a good reason to play Britain in Tier 7. It's also very similar to the top tier Tornado, the main difference of course being the missiles it can carry. I'll start the video off with this engagement I had with an Su-27. I notice he's flying in a pre-notch position, which shows he has brain activity, so need to be careful here. And then as soon as he starts turning into me, I launch my Skyflash and start cranking. He knows my missile will hit first, so he enters a notch and hits my Skyflash. I start pre-flaring and you'll see his R-73 go for my flares immediately after being launched. We merge and now all I have to do is get my nose around first. I start pre-flaring again and get a lucky shot in, otherwise we would have probably traded kills here. Now we'll take a look at its performance in general. Well, that's one of its weaknesses. Some aspects of its performance are below average, like the turn rate, especially when you're stuck. Despite the thrust to weight ratio being somewhat low, it accelerates very quickly and it's actually pretty fast. You can easily outrun most of your enemies if you don't want to engage in a dogfight with them. The energy retention also isn't that terrible. It's no F-16, but if you get jacked into a 2-circle turn, you won't lose all of your speed. If your wings are swept back, energy loss is even less noticeable. However, the roll rate is pretty low. Even when maxed, it might feel a bit sluggish. Moving on to the offensive armament, it consists of one gun and 4 different missiles. The gun is the 27mm BK-27. You get a total of 180 rounds when maxed, with the air targets belt being the best. 180 rounds may not seem like much, but you actually get a trigger time of around 6 seconds, and with enough trigger patience you won't be running out of ammo without respawning. I'll be covering the missiles later in the video. For now, let's focus on the countermeasures. You get 32 flares and 210 chaff for each chaff pod you equip. 1 is usually enough, but if you feel special you can equip 2 and have a total of 420 chaff. Not sure I'd want to sacrifice 1 missile for that, but I know some people would do it. This plane's stock IR missile is the AIM-9L, an all-aspect IR heat-seeking missile. It lacks an IRCCM, but it's still a pretty potent missile. With decent maneuverability and range, it can be pretty dangerous if the enemy isn't aware of their surroundings. If they are, flaring it can be done easily. Cutting your afterburner and flaring a couple times is enough. Unless you're certain the enemy doesn't see you, it should only be fired from rear aspect shots in ranges below 3 km. If you see the enemy pre-flaring, you should refrain from launching it and switch to guns or radar missiles. Extremely close range shots are also not recommended, as the missile needs some time to warm up its guidance, meaning it will fly straight for a bit after being launched. Head-on launches should be avoided at all costs, as even 1 flare is enough to distract your missile. The Skyflash is this aircraft's stock semi-active homing missile. It's essentially an AIM-7E2 with an improved seeker, allowing it to track targets in all aspects. Being a semi-active homing missile, it requires a constant hard lock to guide it towards the intended target. It has a short but powerful booster, which makes it extremely good in sub 7 km head-on launches, as it accelerates towards the target very quickly. It's also decently maneuverable, but a skilled player that has enough energy can still dodge it, so be prepared for a scenario where that happens. Remember to not fire it from too far away or from too close. You can test the limits yourself and find what suits you best. Now that we've learned all that, we can take a look at some more gameplay. Here, I've got a Phantom FG1, which is very easy to deal with. You just need to be careful not to die to his radar missiles. So, I fire a Skyflash at him and try to fly as low as possible to make his missiles hit the terrain. He nudges it last second, and now all I need to do is turn around for him and claim the kill. At these ranges, it's also pretty hard to flare the AIM-9L, even if you turned his afterburner off. I spot an F-15 7 km away from me, and I should have waited a bit more here, because as soon as I fire my Skyflash he starts notching and goes behind that rock. Judging from his direction of travel, I presumed he would have shown up from this side of the rock. Instead, a second enemy appeared and I immediately launched a Skyflash at him. Didn't have enough time or distance to enter a notch, so I got the kill. But then the F-15 comes back, and while I was able to flare his A9M, I didn't have enough energy to dodge his guns. I've got one last clip with stock loadout and it's a 1v1 against the premium F-14A. I notice we're both heading towards this rock for cover, but here he starts flying straight towards me, so I fire my Skyflash at him. Unfortunately, my missile collides with the terrain, but so does his, and now we've lost sight of each other. I fly over the rock and pre-flare just in case he ended up on my 6 without me knowing. I expected to see him here, but after looking at my minimap, I knew exactly where he was. Then I spotted him again, and he fired an A9M, which almost hit me, but luckily I knew how to flare it. We merge and he doesn't seem to be too interested in dogfighting me, so I launched an A9L at him. He kept flaring and then cut his afterburner, which led my missile towards his plane. The better IR missile can purchase for 220 upgrade points is the AIM-9M, an all-aspect infrared heat-seeking missile with suspension tracking RCCM. Just like the AIM-9L, this missile has decent maneuverability and range. However, the presence of an RCCM makes it much harder to flare. The enemy now has to cut their afterburner, flare and turn if they want to avoid your missile. Rear and side aspect shots work the best for this missile, with head-on launches not being recommended as it's easily flareable in that aspect. It's also vulnerable to pre-flaring, so if an enemy is doing that, don't fire your AIM-9M at him. Another cool feature this missile has is a smokeless motor, which doesn't produce a smoke trail, making it harder to spot. The Skyflash SuperTEMP is the better semi-active homing missile available for the Tornado, and it costs 150 upgrade points. This is a slightly heavier Skyflash with a better booster which features a sustainer, increasing its range and maximum speed. The increased weight isn't really that noticeable. It still performs pretty well in head-ons. It suffers from the same issues as the Skyflash and every other semi-active homing missile in this tier. Those being that if you fire it from too close, it will simply not hit the target as it needs some time to warm up its guidance. Firing it from too far away gives the enemy plenty of time to notch or use the terrain to dodge your missiles. It can also be dodged in head-ons, so if that happens, be prepared to switch to guns or engage in a dogfight. For the first clip with a better loadout, I've got 2v1 against an F-16 and F-15. Now, if this was a duel, I would lose to both aircraft. Luckily, this isn't a duel, but without any teammates helping me out here, I'm not gonna be doing much. The first Skyflash I launched hits this object, and the one that I fired right now will get dodged. I'll ignore the F-16 for a bit now and focus on the F-15, which I was easily able to eliminate. Now I just need to deal with the F-16 on my 6, and with how well he retains his energy, I'll easily be able to reverse him. Then we both turn into a one-circle turn, which should be able to win, but because I was so much slower, I got my nose around first. Now I'd like to show you a rare energy trap in tier 7. The Tornado retains it pretty well, so against an enemy like the MiG-29, you'll have no problems energy trapping them, especially if you're faster and higher than them. Here you can see I'm going over Mach 1.3 and I'm gaining speed relatively quickly. Even now that I'm turning, the speed bleed isn't that apparent. I will actually have to cut my throttle and air brake here if I want to get a shot in. Right now, the MiG is turning and climbing, which is drastically reducing the amount of energy he has. Now I need to be careful of other enemies trying to help their teammate out. By now, the MiG is completely out of energy and can't pitch up for me anymore, so I'll have to quickly swoop in before he gets his energy back. He makes a mistake by reversing his turn. If he would have kept turning here, I wouldn't have been able to get a shot in. Before we get to the tier list, I'd like to quickly go over the radar and the RWR present on this aircraft. The radar is the AI-24 Fox Hunter, which is also carried by the top tier Tornado. It has decent range, average search cone, good Doppler filter and LPI, which means that it will sometimes appear as an unknown target on the enemy's RWR. Speaking of RWRs, the one you get is the ARI 18241-1. While it can only display 4 targets, it's extremely good. It tells the name of the aircraft or missile tracking you and the angle relative to your aircraft's nose. If you want to dodge a missile, that number must be either 90 or 270, depending on the direction you're flying in. Lastly, let's place this aircraft on the tier list. Some might disagree with this ranking, but I'm placing it into high A tier. Sure, a skilled player can absolutely dominate in this aircraft, but for a beginner that isn't so skilled, this isn't the best choice.